Yedid Nefesh, Av HaRachaman, Av HaRachaman, Meshach Avdecha, Eretz Onecha, Eretz Onecha. We're in the middle of page 10. Yedid Nefesh, Av HaRachaman, Av HaRachaman, Meshach Avdecha, Eretz Onecha, Eretz Onecha, Yarutz Avdecha, Kemo Ayam, Ishtachaveh, El Muladarecha, Yedid Nefesh, Av HaRachaman, Av HaRachaman, Meshach Avdecha, Eretz Onecha, Eretz Onecha.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is good to be with you in here and online as we try and recapture something of that Psalm Yedid Nefesh, our heart's delight. We know that all of us enter into this space with something different. Some of us are carrying a heavy load that we hope to unburden. Some of us are holding on to sadness we want to be in conversation with. Some of us are celebrating joys we wish to share. And for all of us, this Shabbat, this space, this environment is a place where we can try and breathe into that, to let go of some of it, to hold on to others, to be together in community that is both in person and virtual, and to try and capture some of our heart's delight, which is particularly important on this Shabbat right before Purim. And so if you are joining us online, we hope that you will write hello in the chat so we know who's joining us. And if you are here in the room and you don't need a device in order to engage with us, we hope you will make sure that your cell phones are off, that you can be present and unplugged. And we hope that you will turn to a neighbor now and wish them a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And for lighting the candles this evening, we call up Don Robbins and Catherine Fox Slater to lead us in the lighting of candles, which can be found beginning on page 3. Come right up here to the mic.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our own lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We now welcome Shabbat with the words of Lechu Neranena, Psalm 95, which can be found on page 12. Let us unto God, sing unto God a new song. Let us sing unto God, sing unto God a new song. Yai, 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 yai.
We continue with Lecha Dodi, which begins on page 20. We'll sing the first, second, fifth, and ninth verse because those are my favorites. And when we get to the ninth verse, we will rise as we're able, turn to the back door, and welcome the Shabbat bride as she arrives on verse 9. But for now, page 20.
Lecha Dodi, Mikrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Mekabela. Lecha Dodi, Mikrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Mekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Ishlianu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, v'shemo tiferet beritila. Lecha Dodi, Mikrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Mekabela. Lecha Dodi, Mikrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat, Mekabela.
Since you're standing, let's continue with Baruch Hu, page 28. For our Ma'ariv Aravim prayer this evening, a poem by Sizala Miloz, and I love this line at the end. He imagines going to be in a valley in order to get in touch with something pure and simple, without name, without expectations, hopes, or fears, a place where there is no I and no not I. That's the piece of this poem I hope you'll hold on to. A valley, and above it forests in autumn colors. A voyager arrives, a map leads him there, or perhaps memory. Once, long ago in the sun, when snow first fell, riding this way, he felt joy, strong, without reason. Joy of the eyes, everything was the rhythm of shifting trees, of a bird in flight, of a train on the viaduct, a feast in motion. He returns years later, has no demands. He wants only one most precious thing, to see purely and simply, without name, without expectations, fears, or hopes, at the edge of where there is no I or not I. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim.
As we prepare for the Shema, which is on page 34, the words of this next prayer can be found on page 373. You can kind of keep your fingers in both places. Open up our eyes, teach us
Please be seated.
Page 36. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha beveitecha, uvlechtecha v'derech, uvshochbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot beineinecha, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
We pray responsively on page 39 in the middle of the page. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth.
The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love.
From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way.
Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces.
Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed.
Let us continue to work for the day when the nations shall be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Mi chamocha b'helim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot, osef elech. Mi chamocha b'helim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot, osef When I was in my first year of cantorial school in Jerusalem in 2006, I participated in the FSU, the former Soviet Union Pesach project. I went with 2 rabbinic students, one of whom is now my husband, to Odessa in Ukraine to help lead Passover Seders for the Jewish community there. We didn't know what to expect. We thought maybe we would find a downtrodden community suffering in a sea of anti-Semitism. But instead, we found a lively young rabbi, Rabbi Yulia Gris, a teen youth group, and community members who were joyful to be celebrating Passover together. We worked as a team to lead the Seders and inspired new energy in each other through our connections. I've been thinking about this community as the war is unfolding. I know that Rabbi Yulia has left Odessa and is now in Poland with her daughter. I feel far away. Those were connections from a long time ago, and it is hard to imagine the realities they are facing. Rabbi Gris said in a recent interview, "I never experienced so much pain in my life. I never saw so many tears being cried. But when sometimes I have the feeling of comfort and calm, I can see that in our world there is not only evil and anger. I see lots of humanity and love in the world. Because we try to give comfort to each other and support each other, and we are all connected as one organism, and every part of our organism feels when another part is in pain." Let us join together with the words of Hashkivenu to pray for Rabbi Yulia and her community and for the broader community suffering in this conflict, that they may lie down in peace and rise up renewed, that there may be a Sukkot Shlomecha, a shelter of peace spread over them. Page 42. Hashkivenu
We continue with the Amidah, which begins on page 46. We invite you to rise as you are able.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chastei Avot v'Imaot, Umevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Ata gibor le'olam Adonai, mechayei hakol ata rav lehoshia, mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem, mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim verofei cholim, umatir asurim, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדום מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. Because we are a liturgical tradition, we have books full of prayers, we Jews tend to have a somewhat narrow definition of prayer. But the truth is that there are a lot of things that are prayers, and the Hebrew words on the page is only one of them. The name for God, Yud He Vav He, is all vowels. If you tried to pronounce it, it would sound like this. Because breath can be a prayer. Sometimes also laughter can be a prayer. On Shabbat, we try and get in touch with something eternal in our souls using all the different kinds of prayer at our disposal. And particularly as we approach Purim on Wednesday, I found this poem by the Persian poet Hafiz. Persian poet seems like a good thing to do for Purim, to be particularly appropriate because though he is describing laughter, I think he is also describing prayer. So here is the poem Laughter by Hafiz. What is laughter? What is laughter? It is God waking up. Oh, it is God waking up. It is the sun poking its sweet head out from behind a cloud you have been carrying too long, veiling your eyes and heart. It is light breaking ground for a great structure that is your real body called truth. It is happiness applauding itself and then taking flight to embrace everyone and everything in this world. Laughter is the pole star held in the sky by our beloved, who eternally says, yes, dear ones, come this way towards me and love. Come with your tender mouths moving and your beautiful tongues conducting songs, and with your movements, your magic movements of hands and feet and glands and cells dancing. Know that to God's eye, all movement is a wondrous language and music, such exquisite, wild music. Oh, what is laughter? What is this precious love and laughter budding in our hearts? It is the glorious sound of a soul waking up. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
We turn now to page 60 for Shalom Rav. ישראל. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל. בכל עת ובכל שעה, בכל עת ובכל שעה, בכל עת ובכל שעה, בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל, עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל, עמך תשים לעולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, המברך את עמו ישראל. המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
We take a few moments now for silent prayer. If you can't think of anything to say to the beloved, make a list of 5 things you're grateful for today. I promise it'll change your life.
Say shalom, shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimeru amen. Oh, say shalom, shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimeru amen. Uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amen. Oh, say shalom, shalom bimromam, uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimeru amen. Ve'al kol Yisrael
You guys sound really beautiful.
I was thinking that too.
Ooh, that got me right in the feels. I'm sure you sound beautiful at home too. We turn our prayers now to those in our lives and in our community who are in need of healing. Think about all those we know who are struggling with sickness, I also know this includes not just the sicknesses we can see and know about, but also the pains that we cannot see and cannot know. People who struggle with chronic illness and chronic pain. People who struggle with addiction and those who are in recovery. In our community, we are thinking of Sarah Astrich, Ethan Boriak, Bradley Borden, Terry Brook, Melba Berman, Jacqueline Cutler, Richard Dana, Leib and Zabe Finkelstein, Todd Franks, Marcine S. Goldman, Deborah Goodwin, Stan Gritz, Robin Hodgkins, Cam Hunter, Richard Jackson, Sarah James, Adam Kaplan, Matthew Kardish, Lawrence Levy, Bev Saltzman Lewin, David Livitz, Christine Marcus, Todd Nelkin, Hattie Reese, Neil Reisman, Katie Jones Savrick, Edward Simmons, Marcia Tushida, Marcia Weinstein, Roger Williams, Yvonne Zients, Ariella Sharon Bat Yafa Shoshana, Daniel Zev Ben Zaharia HaKohen V'Miriam, Gelka Nechama Bat Leba Chaya, Leah Bat Shmuel V'Pesel, Shendel Bat Rachel, Yaakov Ben Sarah V'Yichiel, Yehoshua Matyahu Ben Yaakov V'Prevachana, Zahava Bat Miriam V'Shnir Zalman, and all who are suffering with afflictions of body, mind, and spirit, and those with COVID-19, turn to these words of healing, page 253. Few brief announcements for this Shabbat. We are so grateful to our band for being here and adding such beauty to our service. At 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, our Saturday Gems of Torah class will continue in week 2 of a 6-part series highlighting the social justice Torah commentary. Join us on Zoom as we examine new themes and perspectives from the week's Parsha. It's not too late to join in that series if you would like. The Zoom links are in our synagogue communications. Next Friday, March 18th, our classics group for those in their 50s and 60s will host dinner following services at Good & Company Taqueria on Kirby. Please register online so that we can plan accordingly. And lastly, as a reminder, our congregation's COVID policy now allows guests to be mask optional if you are fully vaccinated, which includes appropriate boosters. Emmanuel may have different masking protocols as needed for specific programs and events, which will be communicated ahead of time to participants. In August 1914, the British explorer Ernest Shackleton left on a journey to lead the first expedition ever to traverse Antarctica from the Weddell Sea via the South Pole to the Ross Sea. Sir Shackleton and his crew would never reach their goal. In early 1915, before they could even reach the White Continent itself, the ship was trapped in dense ice pack and try as they might, they could not free it. The crew lived in their imprisoned ship for several months as it floated with the ice. Eventually, as temperatures dropped, that ice began to slowly crush the vessel, and on the 27th of October 1915, more than a year after they left the UK, Shackleton ordered his crew to abandon ship. A month later, the boat completely sank. For half a year, they continued, first by foot, carrying their supplies and life rafts, and then by boat. They rowed for Elephant Island between Antarctica and South America. When they reached its uninhabited shores, they camped in their overturned crafts and survived off seals and penguins. With no way to call for help and no chance of passing ships, Shackleton took a crew of 4 others in one of the open boats, and they rowed all the way to South Georgia, navigating the wild seas of the Southern Ocean with nothing but a sextant. Once on land, they traversed uncharted and uncrossed mountains to reach a Norwegian whaling station where they were finally able to raise the alarm and call for rescue. It took 4 attempts to get across the ice and reach the beleaguered explorers, but finally, on August 30th, 1916, more than 2 years after they had set out, they were rescued. Not a single man from Shackleton's crew was lost. Before they had embarked on their perilous journey, while still in England, they had given their ship a new name. In the long history of boat names, perhaps none has been more fitting than that of Sir Shackleton's ill-fated vessel that sank 106 years ago. They called their ship the Endurance. Though we have not traversed the Antarctic, nor survived on seal meat, nor rowed for months, we know something about endurance. Endurance is the power to keep going even when the task seems insurmountable. Endurance is the will to move forward even when we cannot yet see the way. Endurance is our ability to push through the marathon, though our muscles are aching and our feet are exhausted. Over the past 2 years, this pandemic has been a test of so many of our qualities, but principal among them has been our endurance. The challenges we have faced could not have been more different than those faced by Shackleton and his crew, but both required near superhuman reserves of endurance. There have been moments where our stores of this vital supply have been depleted, and we have had to wonder, as I imagine Sir Shackleton wondered at various points during his 2-year journey, where does endurance come from, and how can we replenish it when it is low? Moses was also someone who knew something about leading an expedition that required endurance. He too had led his people on a perilous journey that took far longer than they had planned, not just 2 years, but 40. They did not have to contend with ice, but there were elements in their wilderness that were no less forgiving. And like Sir Shackleton, Moses led his people through repeated trials and tribulations to the safety of their homeland. What skill might these 2 men have had that gave them the endurance they needed to lead their people home? Our Parsha gives us a hint. This Shabbat we begin the 3rd book of the Torah. We open with the word Vayikra, which gives both the Parsha and the book its name. And it is written in a peculiar way. In a handwritten Torah scroll, the scribe always draws the aleph at the end of the word Vayikra, smaller than the other letters. Commentators throughout the ages have speculated on the meaning of this single diminutive letter. Scribal error, being a plausible explanation, is one that is both theologically uninspiring and no fun at all. Here is the theory offered by Reb Simcha Bunim of Pesiska. Even though Moses attained great heights, he never became impressed with himself because of it. He regarded himself with an exceedingly humble spirit. Even when God was speaking directly to him, Moses maintained an image of himself that was more like the little olive. Moses needed confidence, to be sure, but what made him a truly exceptional leader was his humility. Shackleton had this too. The Endurance expedition was not his first attempt to explore Antarctica. Earlier, in the Nimrod expedition of 1907, he and 3 other men in his party came within 97 miles of being the first humans to reach the South Pole. Shackleton had enough food to make it there, but not enough food to get back. Historian Michael Smith writes, exhausted, bitterly cold, and starving, he took the decision to turn back in sight of his objective because he was not prepared to risk the lives of his 3 colleagues. When fame and glory beckoned, Shackleton put their safety first. On returning home, his wife Emily asked Shackleton why he had turned back with the pole in sight. He simply said, "I thought you would prefer a live donkey to a dead lion." Bo Reifenberg, a polar historian, wrote that Shackleton diverged from the popular Victorian fascination of worshiping the hero as a martyr who died for his cause. Shackleton, said Reifenberg, wanted fame and fortune, but he wanted to be alive to appreciate them. Just 2 years later, because of the lessons learned in Shackleton's expedition, Robert Scott and Roald Amundsen finally reached the pole. But it was this humility that made Shackleton such a terrific leader, especially in a tight spot. One fellow polar explorer once wrote, "For scientific leadership, give me Scott. For swift and efficient travel, Amundsen. But when you are in a hopeless situation, when there seems no way out, get on your knees and pray for Shackleton." When things on the Endurance, forgive the pun, went south, Sir Shackleton's focus once again shifted from glory to the survival of the 27 men who served in his command. These men were not hardened polar explorers with experience on the ice. Some were ordinary sailors hired to bring the crew down. Others were scientists on field expeditions. One was an artist, one was a stowaway. But their captain, Shackleton, would never ask them to do something he himself would not do. When winter clothing was distributed, he made sure the crew were supplied before the officers. During one particularly harrowing boat journey, he gave his mittens to a desperate colleague. But humility served Shackleton in another way as well. So often we have a vision of how we think things will go. We have a plan and a dream. And when forces outside of our control threaten to push us off course, it can be hard to accept it. Whether he was 97 miles from the South Pole with dwindling food or living on a boat trapped on a float of ice, Shackleton knew when to pivot. It takes humility to accept that there are things we cannot control. It takes humility to let go of a dream. The serenity prayer that has been adopted by many in 12-step programs reads, "God, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things I cannot accept." I would argue that even more than serenity, this requires humility. The humility to say, I had a plan for my day, for my year, for my life, but the universe had other plans for me. This is not giving up or giving in. Rather, it is the key to moving forward. The brave ship Endurance was supposed to carry Shackleton to Antarctica. But if he had not known when to accept that there was no breaking the boat free from the ice, then he and his crew would have drowned with the ship. When the time came to make a change, Shackleton listened to that little olive inside of him and said, I will control what I can control. I will let go of the rest. The pandemic has taught us the value of this kind of humility. That sense we had before all this began, that we were the masters of our own destiny, has been revealed as the myth it always was. Our lives can be blown off course by the winds of invisible germs and political will. We have adjusted so many plans, revised so many expectations, reshaped so many dreams. But endurance was found in our ability to control what we could control. Maybe there were fewer people than we had hoped for at our birthday party or wedding, but still we celebrated. Maybe our family vacationed in our living room, but we still spent quality time together. Maybe we worked from home, but we got to walk the dog with our spouse at lunchtime. Our endurance was found not just in surviving, but in marking a new point on the map and rowing in that direction. Maybe we had to change that plot point many, many times, but we kept moving, kept sailing, stuck together, and made it through. Now, as we sit on this beach, not sure how much longer until we are fully and finally home, we can marvel at the humility and endurance that got us through. Marine archaeologists announced this week that they found the wreck of the Endurance beneath the Antarctic ice. Using undersea drones and helicopters and cutting-edge technology to search a 150 square mile area of off the east of the Antarctic Peninsula, researchers have found the wreckage of Ernest Shackleton's ship. Their quarry sat for 106 years on the floor of the Weddell Sea, 10,000 feet down in some of the iciest water on Earth. It was not easy. It was time-consuming and expensive. It tested their strength and their resolve. But what could be a better message for March of 2022 than an expedition down to the depths to find our lost endurance? Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We continue on page 282 for Aleinu L'Shabeach. At the bottom of the page, we invite you please to rise.
Aleinu L'Shabeach Ladon HaKol, Latet Gedula Liotzer Breshit, Shelo Asanu Kigoye Ha'aratzot, Velo Samanu, Kamishpachot Ha'adama, Shelo Sam Chelkenu Kahem, Vegor Aleinu Kechol Hamonam, Vanachnu Korim, Umishtachavim Umodim, Livnei Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Page 287. V'ne'emar, v'haya Adonai, lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo
Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones and those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, life and death. We take a few moments now for silent memory. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, And those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own, Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. Our hearts go out in sympathy to the families of Reba Eichelberger, Ted Rogan, Marion Dom, Carrie Parvin, who were laid to rest in recent days. We also recall the art sites of Helen Aronoff, Evelyn Baum, Dorothy Berg, Marlene Berliner, Walter Betensky, Harry H. Brochstein, Meyer Brochstein, Jacques Bullhorn, Linda Calderon, Ruth Cass, Esther Sensio, Louis Ralph Cohen, Louis Stephen Colby, Kate Daly, Caroline Dipkin, Barbara Rolnick Dokale, Richard Beck Dreyfus, Jack Duckler, Sam Eisenberg, Philip Farr, Mary Feldman, Renee Fenberg, Mr. B. Finger, Joseph E. Fishbein, Samuel Fisher, Hilda Frank, Arthur Robert Fried, Martin Fried, Sonia Hirsch Friedman, Irene Fritzhand, Odell Kaufman First, Iris Gardner, Ira Gary, Selma Ann Galt, Abraham Ginsberg, Robert Gold, Bert Goldberg, Jamie Goldberg, Ray Bell Kahn Goldgar, Wilfred Goldgar, Ralph J. Goldstein, Jake Goldstein, Abraham Gomberg, Ida Ritchie Goodfriend, Josie Haken, Saul Joseph Hoffman, Rose Krantz Horwitz, Daniel Eiselberg, Riva Isker, Morton Jacobowitz, Marion K. Joseph, Elizabeth Jane Kessler, Clarence Ketchum, William Klein, Alice E. Klinger, Minnie Hoffman Layden, Lulu Leiker, Elfried Isser Lemson, David Lensner, Pearl Lesky, Natalie Lessie, Daniel Leva, Robert Loeb, Gail Schrager Lorch, Miriam Lowitz, Bernice Mass, Esther Croft Maggots, Ruth Marcus, Michael Marmo, Mose Mazer, Jenny Elizabeth Meyerson, Ruth Miller Bosch, Julia Miner, Pauline Morgenstern, Meyer Nathan, Sibley Newman, Sam Ornberg, Arnie Peskin, Herman L. Phillipson, Herman Proler, Mr. Abel Rumsey, Joseph Schnoll, Berta Schull, Elizabeth Selden, Mildred Fink Schneiderson, Pearl Schub, Lucille K. Smith, Isidore Sokoloff, Donald Springer, Lily Sterling, Edward Shukart, Ruth Ann Sulko, Joe David Thomas, Jacob Joseph Vogenfang, Jeanette Waldman, Terry Walker, Clarice Wallach, Stephen Weingarten, Dimple White, Herman Zainfeld, Bernice Zellinga, Dolores Zlotnick. Turn to the words of Mourner's Kaddish, which can be found on page 294. We rise together as one community. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'ama divrach yirtei ve'amichma chutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'galau v'izman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam umea maya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitchomam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shmei dikudsha brichu, le'ela mim kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'ne'emata, damiram be'ama v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Please be seated.
We continue now with our Kiddush. The words can be found on page 5. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikraei kodesh, zeicher litziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, ve'shabbat kodshecha ve'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai Mikadesh HaShabbat L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
So at our weekly clergy worship planning meeting, there was a big debate about what we should do for a closing song. There were those among us who said that we should do something in honor of the fact that it's Purim on Wednesday. I'm not going to tell you who was who. There were those among us who said that we should do something to honor that this week was International Women's Day. And there were those among us who said, just sing something traditional, they'll like something traditional. We decided on a compromise, which can be found on page 321. I don't know how I can be expected to follow that, but please rise for the benediction. Source of laughter. source of joy, source of strength in our hardest moments, source of possibility and source of humility, source of our endless stores of endurance, even when we feel like there may be no endless need for them. We thank you for the many gifts in our lives. We thank you for this gift of Shabbat, which gives us the opportunity to reconnect to something beloved that lives inside of us and reconnect once again with prayer and joy and laughter and friends. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.